everyone, welcome to the second installment in my ongoing series in which I have two different TBRs set up for our fantasy bingo facing off with one another. We've got a full sci-fi board, a full fantasy board, and this time around I have aliens chasing me too. In fact, it's thanks to Lexi that I know which square I'm starting with for this vlog, and that is going to be First Contact. Currently, the engineers are trying our best to enter the command center, and to do that, I'm going to be reading Jitterbug by Gareth L. Powell. I am entering this book almost completely blindly. I ended up getting it through the Starbright subscription. I'm so excited that Lexi has given me the excuse to finally read it. It's been sitting on my shelves untouched for a few months, which of course makes me wonder, Leandra, why do you have this subscription service if you're not reading these books in a timely fashion? So I know that it's space opera. I know that there should be some type of alien first contact that's going on, but beyond that, this is going to be a completely new ride to me. I've heard from a couple people that this is 100% a popcorn read with a ragtag group of characters, which is exactly what I want at the moment. And it's going to be quite short. It's a physical read, so hopefully I can read it quite quickly. I can help my team get into that command center, and then we can move on with whatever task Lexi throws at us. When it comes to my fantasy option, I have a very different book in mind, and I'm going to be starting it as soon as I can finish Jitterbug because it's going to take me quite some time to get through. That is The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba. The audiobook alone is 48 hours. I was not expecting that. I knew it was long, but for some reason I didn't know how long it was going to be. That translates into maybe about 1,400 pages. It's gonna be quite the read. It's gonna be quite the pages for my team if I can finish it in time, but I am excited for it. I feel as though despite its length, it does feel like it's gonna be a popcorn read as well, something that I can listen to whenever I need just a distraction from life, because we're following a main character who finds herself just entering a different realm where there are goblins, trolls, other creatures. She's working at this inn and starting to level up, figuring things out. I believe that makes this lit RPG. Am I using the term correctly? I think I am. It's going to be quite the challenge for me, but I do think that tonally it's going to match with Jitterbug as far as it being a light, fun read. It probably will deal with some serious things, but I think it's going to be on the lighter side. We're just going to see if I'm completely wrong about that. Now, there are two reasons why I won't be reading these books in tandem like I've done during the pilot episode. One, we're doing Escape the Readathon. I want to make sure I'm logging books in a timely fashion, and so I'm going to be reading Jitterbug and then jumping into The Wandering Inn. Also, these two books would be ridiculous trying to compare while reading in tandem because Jitterbug is only 300 pages. Halfway would be 150 pages. If we're comparing that to The Wandering Inn, I'd be reading 700 pages and then sitting down to talk about both books. It's just not realistic, and I also acknowledge it's kind of not realistic to be comparing these two reads. They're so different, but that's the name of the game. That's the challenge. And I think we all know that we're going to be taking this with a grain of salt. If one book wins over the other when it comes to the tile I give it, if I'm recommending both books wholeheartedly because I love them both, honestly, we're all winners at the end. That's what I'm hoping in this challenge, is that at some point during this vlog, every single book ends up being a banger. So even though one beats the other, at the end of the day, you're walking away with a handful of books you might want to add to your own TBR. Without further ado, let me jump into this read, and then I can update you soon afterwards. Okay, I am flying through this space opera. It's definitely fast-paced, more plot-driven than character-driven, which may not work for everyone. That's not to say that I'm not invested in the characters. We get multiple POVs, which is my preference, and that allows us to look at the conflict from different angles, and truly every single character is very different from the others. We've got Copernicus Brown. He is the captain, the leader of this ragtag bounty hunting ship, and then we've got the ship itself, a sentient Jitterbug, and it's been really interesting to look at the humans from its perspective. And then probably the third heavy hitter, the third most important perspective, is Amber Roth, who is a pirate. She was a stowaway on this ship that was attacked by pirates, her old friends that she kind of screwed over, tried to get away from, and then she was saved by Copernicus, by the rest of the crew of the Jitterbug, and they're kind of stuck with her. She ended up taking this mysterious data crystal that a lot of people want, powerful people. They've killed a lot of people along the way, chasing her down, and now she, the crew of the Jitterbug, have an X on their back. They're trying to outpace their enemies, all while figuring out what is actually on this crystal. Why is it so important? The tone, the POVs, the adventure itself is actually reminding me a little bit of the Two Lives of Faven Scythe. Now that one plays into fantasy, a little bit of evolution regarding the human race. So it is different. It's also sapphic compared to this one, which actually the reason why it's also reminding me of the Two Lives of Faith Inside is because we do have a romantic subplot between the captain and the pirate. It's very fast paced as far as like just not being believable. These characters have had 2-3 conversations with each other and they're already not necessarily in love, but certain thoughts they're having about each other. It's way too quick. Like, you should not be thinking about a future with the other person when you don't know who they are beyond their first name. But I digress. It is what it is. I think it's something that is not unexpected in space operas. A lot of times they do have quite fast-paced romances. I think that adds to the drama, almost like the soap opera-esque of it, where we have heavy feelings, a lot of adventure, a lot of dangerous situations. So people are escalating in every single way, including romance. But I do find it fun, and I am excited to continue to see what happens, what is actually on this data crystal, and if any of these characters are going to survive, because we've already had casualties, characters that we've known and kind of appreciated, and that's quite sad, but it also keeps you on your toes. So I'm going to dive back into this. We will see how I feel. But right now, it's just been a really good popcorn read, which was what we expected. And I'm really happy that it's turning out that way because that's exactly what I'm in the mood for. The engineers have officially broken into the command center, which is awesome. I swear we got in it with record time. That was so quick. I did manage to finish Jitterbug in time to help out my team. And now I get to start a completely new book for the task within said room. And when it comes to Jitterbug, I do have mixed feelings. I really want to try the author again. That is one thing I can emphasize. He has delivered what was advertised, a fast-paced space opera, super entertaining, some interesting reveals at the end that I actually would have liked more developed because I found them quite fascinating. It was a bit of a juxtaposition though, so the complex ending doesn't necessarily match up to the straightforward, action-packed, convenient narrative that we were given for the first 2/3 of this book. Characters were interacting with each other over and over again, and it felt as though the world was far smaller than described. The fact that we have this swirl, all of these different slivers that people can expand upon, live on. We have different stations, settlements, people are flying across the stars, and yet characters from one's past do crop up by the end of this book, and I'm just thinking, how is that possible? That seems like a very small world, but maybe it is. There also is a very simplistic insta-love subplot between the pirate and the bounty hunter, which some people will enjoy. I just took it with a grain of salt. I was like, okay, fine. You've known each other for maybe a week, and now you're talking about the rest of your lives together, how much you would sacrifice with it. There's a lot going on between the pirate and the bounty hunter, between Amber and Copernicus, that you just kind of have to roll your eyes and say, sure, you love birds, have fun. We're gonna be busy saving the world. So that is one thing that I feel as though I can either take or leave. It's not that important to the plot, so if you're not someone who enjoys romance in your books, you're not gonna be that affected by it. My favorite part remains the perspective of Jitterbug. I find it really fascinating, and it was interesting to see it interact with other spaceships, the different personalities, the different experiences that come with it, and it was just a really good, fun read at the end of the day. I wonder if I would get more out of it by reread, specifically that second third, because we got so much complexity. Was it a bit convenient? Was there a bit of a cop-out that the author wasn't able to explain it further? Maybe, but once again, I think that Gareth Powell gave us what he advertised, and I do want to try him again. I'm still sitting on my rating. I don't know where I'm at as far as how I feel about it, and kind of translating it into a 5-star scale, but I will keep you updated on that front. In the meantime, we've got to move on to my second book for the First Contact Square. And to confirm, Jitterbug does count as First Contact. I've seen some marketing describe it as quasi First Contact, and I do think that that's fair. And so it does definitely count for the square. Now, the next one I'll be moving on to is representing fantasy, The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba. Once again, I told you this in the introduction, it is a hefty book. It is so long, and so I'm quite intimidated, but I am excited, especially because I haven't really experienced any lit RPG narratives before, to my knowledge. I have read characters who've played D&D, played lit RPG games, but not really read any type of narrative structure that is based off of that design. So it's going to be really interesting, and on top of the fact that it's super chonky, which is definitely not my style. We're going to see how it feels. If I DNF, those who aren't aware of the way the system works, I'm just going to be picking up another fantasy book that fits for the square, and I can't move on to the next square until I finish a book for both squares, and then I can decide the winner, and then of course we can pick up another square after that. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't want to predict I'm going to DNF this book. Let's give it an honest shot beforehand. Because it's so long, if I do finish this book, it's going to be a couple mid-book updates, because I feel like that's the only way to do it. So I'll update you when I get far enough to get a good gist of where I'm at and what I'm thinking about this book so far. Ooh, I never record this late. I've got the light set up. Obviously, I'm in a different place with my camera, but I am determined to keep reading The Wandering Inn tonight. And I reached a third of the way, a really good stopping point. We're right before the chapter that is declared the King's Interlude. I have no idea what that could mean, but I really wanted to pause and provide my thoughts, because even a third of the way is a significant amount of this book. At least 400 pages I have read. Obviously, I'm listening to the audio, so it's a little bit skewed, but I am growing ever more invested. I'm not gonna lie, friends. It had a rocky start. The first couple chapters, I thought, oh no, should I prepare myself to explain that I have to DNF this? Not because it's done poorly, but because I'm just not interested. I found the main character, Aaron Solstice, to be a bit grating. I don't know if it was the voice narrator's choice of tone, voice, because everything else is performed really lovely, but as soon as our main character speaks, I do find it a little bit of chalk on, what is it? Nails on chalkboard? This is why I don't record this late, because my words don't come to me as well as they should. But she's grown on me. I find Erin to be really endearing and sweet. She has a good heart. She's just trying to survive in this world that she walked into unintentionally, and she has no idea how to get back to her world. Basically, one night she decided to go into the bathroom, open the door, and when she walked through, rather than seeing her restroom, instead she was transported into this magical realm that includes dragons, drakes, goblins, and necromancers, all of these different beings. And on top of that, in this world, they have a leveling up system. Anything that is sentient and has given up strength, power, brawn for intelligence, intellect, skill building, they have this leveling up system that seems to update every time you're about to fall asleep. And Erin is in a bit of a wake-up call. She first had to run from a dragon, then she had to run away from goblins who 100% wanted to eat her, and she found refuge at this abandoned inn. And with every passing day, she's gaining a new skill, learning how to fend for herself, find food, figure out what's edible, what's not, and by this point, she's made a few allies, a few friends, a necromancer, a drake, and this ant-like insect creature that are part of the guard in the nearby city. She's learning how to barter, and she's kind of proving to herself that maybe she can make a go of it in this world. We've also found ourselves in the heads of other characters, which I wasn't expecting. This is multiple POV. Erin is our main character. We're in her head for most of the time, but we do find ourselves in the head of the drake, in the head of a goblin who has really stolen my heart. She's been so sweet, and I really hope that she and Erin befriend each other, because she has had a really hard life thus far. And we also have found the perspective of from what I can tell, another human, and it's been really interesting and a far richer world than what I initially expected in the way it started. I just kind of thought it was going to be a bit slapstick, a bit humorous and chaotic, and it is, but it's also quite hard-hitting. We have discussions of sexual assault as a risk in this world, death, gruesome death, either by violence or by anything else that could happen, poison, and on top of that, social status. So we have classes. Certain species, races are viewed as lower, less intelligent, or just not worth one's time compared to others that are supposedly meant to immediately gain respect. And that is something that Erin is navigating. I just find it very interesting. I'm really excited to continue this, and I can see why it's a beloved series. Even though the books are massive, I'm here for it. I'm here for Erin's journey. I feel quite comfortable at 2x speed. So rather than a 48-hour audiobook, it's a 24-hour audiobook, and so I do have about 16, 17 hours left. So I'm going to jump back in, and I'm very, very excited. So I can't wait to, let me just go, okay? I'm just gonna go. Bye, everybody. Greetings from Iceland. My friend Danny, also known as Danny Dabbles on BookTube, ended up inviting me on this once-in-a-lifetime trip to Iceland, and we took full advantage of our 10-some days there. We did a lot of hiking, but we also ended up perusing the streets of Reykjavik. There was the Rainbow Road that led to this iconic, very unique cathedral that was beautiful architecturally, and honestly the entire city and the villages we visited while in West Iceland are quite unique. I feel as though the architecture is different than I'm used to in the United States, and we perused various shops, a photography store, a bunch of bookstores. It was fun to see what was translated to English, what was translated to Icelandic. There's a lot of Icelandic pride, especially in their Icelandic authors, which we really appreciated seeing. I wish I took more footage of the different types of bookstores we went into, because we ended up going to 4 or 5, but one really cool experience was a book bar where you can peruse the shelves, take up a book, but there's also comedians that were performing. It really got packed when the live music started. We were there for 4 or 5 hours unintentionally, and I think part of that is to do with the midnight sun. It would be sunlight until maybe like 11:30 at night, which was really crazy, and it definitely took us some time to adjust to that. One thing I wasn't expecting is how diverse and foodie Iceland truly is. There were so many different restaurants to choose from. We did make sure to eat a few traditional Icelandic dishes, a lot of seafood, but we also ended up exploring other places, other cultural dishes, which was really fun. One thing we ended up hearing is that the largest immigrant population is Polish people, and you can see that in how often you ended up finding Polish restaurants around, which I wasn't expecting. While we were on a day trip, we visited this farm that ended up making its own ice cream. I ended up starting, forgot to do the B-roll, whoops, but those are the cows that they get the milk from, and it was just so cool. There was also a dog roaming about that we were able to pet, but alas, I'm not sharing it to you, so you're just gonna have to use your imagination. There was a dog, I promise. There was also a crepe place that was delicious. We ended up going to a cat cafe, and that was really nice to see the cats relaxing. We didn't really get to pet them because they were doing their own thing, but that's okay. I got to spy on them, and maybe that was even better. And we interacted with cats around Reykjavik, around Iceland in general, because they're everywhere and they're pretty chill with humans. We also ended up going to this greenhouse where they grow their own tomatoes, and the tomato soup was so good. There was a lot of Icelandic sweater shops too. Gallery Lundi was one of the ones I bought from. I'm not gonna lie, I bought a few sweaters that broke the bank a little bit. And then we just enjoyed Iceland's nature, the waterfalls, the beaches. We were quite lucky that we weren't there during tourist season, and for some, that might not be ideal because you didn't get to see the northern lights and you didn't get to see how green the country can get, but I enjoyed the beauty of it anyway, and it was perfect temperatures. I want to say that it was typically like 30, 40, sometimes even 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and we did go on a lot of hikes. There was one that we ended up going on. There was a 3-mile hike between 2 towns, and we walked from one town to the next, had lunch, and then we walked back, and that was probably my favorite experience overall. I just loved getting lost on the trail in a sense, because you could look around and all you saw was rock formations. Most of the trails we were on would be easy for anyone who isn't a big hiker, but this one might have been deemed a bit more intermediate because there were places where you could potentially fall or hurt yourself. But honestly, Iceland, I miss you so much. Thanks for a great time. I am officially back from my trip to Iceland. I had a marvelous time, and I'm sure you are going to get an earful during my voiceovers as I show you all of the footage to Iceland. I honestly didn't record enough. There were many times when I was walking in shops, buying things, exploring, going on hikes, and I didn't record anything because I was in the moment, and that's perfectly fine. That's what we need as well. So I apologize that I don't have as much footage as I would have liked, but I hope that you enjoy what I do show you and enjoy the facts, the information that I provide about my experience as a whole. At the end of the day, all you really need to know is I highly recommend it. And I'm wearing one of the sweaters that I bought. I love it so much. And so I had to wear it during this update. But let's get back to business, the topic at hand. So I am still working on The Wandering Inn. I'm about 2/3 of the way. And because of how long this book is, that is a significant amount. The one thing I want to make sure I don't forget to mention is the overall story arc, where the conflict is. Is there a conflict? Is there a plot? And do I see a resolution at the end of this book? Not really. I suppose big chonky series readers might say that, oh, it's because this book is just in development. It's providing the world building, providing the foundation for a much longer overarching story. And I can fully get behind that. And I'm not mad at the idea of this being a bit plotless. We are jumping around to different perspectives. We're getting a lot of rich detail about the world, about the creatures, about the politics, the culture, the different species that have to commingle, cohabitate, whether it be in the city or in the countryside. And Erin is thrown into the middle of this, as are other characters like Ryoka, another human who found herself one day in this world that is completely different and foreign to her, and she just has to survive and accept that the world she knew is no longer, there's no way for them to get back. And I've really appreciated that with the passing of more and more chapters, we're getting perspectives from other characters at different places in their lives. One that's been especially interesting, her name is Gazi, and she has a bloody past as a warrior, as a soldier, and everyone is still terrified of her, and they should be because of her abilities. And yet Erin is this oddity. She's a curiosity for everyone. Most people are just surprised that she's still alive, and let's be honest, I am as well to an extent. But Gazi finds Erin to be a curiosity because Erin is speaking to her with a blank slate. Erin doesn't know what Gazi is known for, and so she is asking her personal questions, talking to her casually, and Gazi is finding her more and more fascinating, and we're seeing progress in the inn, I will say that. So Erin is advancing, she's gaining more skills as an innkeeper, and you are slowly but surely seeing the Wandering Inn become an establishment. People are frequenting it, either for food and or possibly in the near future going to actually be staying there, which is going to be fun. And so those things are happening. We are getting conflicts, and we're getting quite a bit of emotional burden on our characters. Erin's been put through the ringer, Ryoka has as well, and they have been placed in super dangerous situations where you're wondering, are they going to survive? And yet there's a lot of light, there's a lot of humor and camaraderie. Characters are growing, either getting some self-growth, or they're growing as a community, learning to accept each other's differences, which is really lovely. But on the whole, I don't see the traditional story arc of rising action, major conflict, big battle, whatever is happening, and then the resolution. I don't see that happening. We're gonna have to see what the latter third has in store. I'm not mad at the fact that we are just kind of hanging out with characters. I think that that speaks to the fact that this is leaning more slice of life, even though we are in a dangerous world, and a bit cozy. It actually is a bit cozy too. I have appreciated just meandering with these characters and not feeling too much progress is going on. I could see it happening, obviously, with the many, many books to come, and the fact that all of the books are quite large. I'm still very excited to be reading this book. I'm glad I took a chance on it, and we're gonna have to see what this final third has in store for us. It has been so long since I've sat in front of the camera for this vlog. I'm not gonna lie, for the past couple days, I've been debating whether or not I should scrap it. If you are seeing this, I've elected not to do so, but I do think that it's important to talk about because when vlogging, I'm someone who needs to make sure I'm on task. task. I need to be focused on the concept and getting it done in a relatively short amount of time. We are going on a month at this point, and I'm not even starting the next square that I want to accomplish before the vlog closes. So yeah, this has taken me a lot longer than I planned, especially because that means that Escape the Readathon is over. It is the first week of June. I'm so excited to start off the Amazing Readathon, 4th year in a row participating, 3rd year being a co-host. But it's also so wild that Escape is already done. I'm so proud of our team engineers. I'm grateful to Lexi for inviting me to be a co-host, and a huge shout out to my co-captains, Jordan and Madison. This was such a fun readathon. I cannot wait for next year. I can't wait to see how creative Lexi makes herself once again. She keeps outdoing herself, which is really impressive. And now I have the Amazing Readathon to get excited for. So last year I was a co-host with Katie. I Would Rather Be Reading. We ended up winning with the Lore Keepers. So there is some pressure. I'm hoping that this time around, my team Allons-y can bring us the crown once again. Brie has been inspired by Doctor Who, which is super cool. I'm co-hosting for the first time with Monica, which is definitely going to be a ride. I cannot wait. But yeah, there's just so much going on, and I'm still recuperating from holiday. It's been a while. I have been home for a couple weeks at this point, and I still feel a little bit out of sorts. I don't know why. I'm hoping that I get out of this funk sooner rather than later, but I have finished The Wandering Inn. I ended up finishing it last week. It took me 3 weeks to finish, which isn't surprising because it's a 1,400 page book, but oh my gosh, that was crazy. So that adds to the fact that this just took me longer because I don't expect books that I'm reading for vlogs to take me that long to finish. And it's been really interesting to compare it to Jitterbug. I'm pretty sure during my intro I said that that would be impossible because they're so inherently different. Not only different in genre, we have a sci-fi space opera and then an epic fantasy. We have a super short book and then a really, really long book. And I just didn't really expect to be able to compare them realistically and with, a fair perspective in mind. But they do have some things in common. I mean, obviously I'm reading them for the first contact square. So that is a story arc, a trope that is identifiable and can be compared between the two of them. And I have similar criticisms. My biggest one is that, so let me back up. My favorite part of both books was the first third. My least favorite part of both books was the final third, the ending, the rising conflict, the resolution. And part of that is because I think their endings were oddly paced in comparison to the rest of the books. So even though their pacing in comparison to each other was very different, we're talking about an action-packed space opera and a slow, meandering, epic fantasy. Within their worlds, within their story arcs, I do feel like the endings were rushed. For The Wandering Inn, because that's the one I still need to provide a thorough review of, that one, I think it's partially because we have just been taking our time with our characters for so long that to have so much relying on this one huge battle with an adventuring party that was here and there, they become ever more present throughout the book, but they aren't our main characters. They aren't our humans, for instance. They're interacting with the humans and, having Aaron and Ryoka question themselves and figure out their place in this fantastical world. But it was a bit odd for us to shift and focus on this adventuring party as they are wandering the catacombs, these caves, in search of treasure, and then all hell breaks loose. We also end up just getting mass death. So there are important characters that we've been following who die, and then just a lot of nameless characters as well. And it just felt a little bit disjointed and out of place. It was high energy. I was gripped, but it didn't really feel like it made sense with the rest of the narrative of what was going on. We got a lot of setup for what's to come. I could very clearly see that as a first book in a series compared to Jitterbug, which is a standalone. So we're keeping that in mind as well. But I was a little bit disappointed, even though I'm also grateful that we didn't end on a major cliffhanger because I thought that that was what was going to happen. Our characters do have a point of rest at the end of the book. This major conflict is resolved in some way, and now our characters are recuperating after that, which is nice. I was just so worried that we would end in the middle of this action and not really know what's to come, and I find that to be low-hanging fruit. Some people love cliffhangers. I don't, and so I am grateful for that, but yeah, I feel as though the ending was a little bit rushed compared to the rest of the book. But which one is going to win the crown for first contact? This is actually really tough. I felt pretty confident that Jitterbug was going to lose with flying colors, that The Wandering Inn was just going to blow me away, sweep me off my feet, and yet they're relatively similar. I actually think I'm going to end up giving them a pretty similar rating. So it's just a matter of preference. It has nothing to do with the ratings I'm giving them, because they could be the same or they won't really be that different. But I do think that The Wandering Inn edges a little bit higher than Jitterbug, and so that is going to be the winner for this square. Currently, fantasy has a very tiny lead, having 2 squares to sci-fi's 1. We're gonna have to see if it pulls ahead even further with this second square for the vlog. And because I am reading for the Amazing Readathon, because it is Pride Month this June, as is every June, I thought this is a great opportunity for me to focus on the trans, non-binary main character square. And I've already started the first book I'm gonna read, but I'm going to keep my thoughts to myself for now. That is Amazing Luck by Makana Yamamoto. The author is also non-binary, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, Yamamoto is non-binary, and their main character, Edie, within the book is non-binary. There is a secondary character who's trans as well, and I love the way this is described. Ocean's 8 meets Blade Runner, a swashbuckling love letter to Hawaii. It's a heist. We have a dystopian backdrop too, and there's quite a few characters where you're wondering, what are your intentions? Are you good, bad, a mix in between? And there's going to be a lot of commentary on capitalism too, I'm sure. This is, of course, my sci-fi choice for the non-binary main character square, and I actually did have a book chosen for fantasy, but I can't promise that I'm going to be reading it during the vlog. I might have to change what I'm reading, only because we are at the mercy of Amazing Readathon. We don't know what's to come, what the second, third, fourth leg is going to look like. The first one, we are in Wester Drumlins, and I believe it's in relation to the episode with the Weeping Angels. I don't know anything about Doctor Who, but I'm really excited because this definitely fits the square that I'm reading it for. The leg? Squares, legs, we are dealing with a lot of different components here, but the legs prompt is to read a book that was recommended on BookTube, and I definitely ended up getting this on my radar thanks to BookTube. Not only creators, but people in the comments who've kept saying, Leandra, you need to read this book. So this is definitely going to count for that too, which is great. I'll try to do a mid-book update at some point whenever I feel like I have a good understanding of what's going on and my feelings in relation to the book itself. Okay, I promise I ended up getting up, getting a snack, stretched my legs a little bit, but I jumped back into Amazing Luck, and I really only read one more chapter and realized this might be a good time for me to pause because I am about a quarter of the way through this book, and I feel as though the tension is slowly rising, even as we have quite a few players on the board that we need to be introduced to. This is definitely a heist narrative with high stakes. Edie, our main character, they are released from prison in the opening chapter, and it seems as though that shouldn't have been the case. They're being let out early for good behavior, but that doesn't really add up to them because they weren't notified that would be happening, but they're just going to accept that they're being allowed their freedom, and they're returning to their home, their family. It's been a lovely reunion, but they also are struggling to find a job because they've been blacklisted. We aren't really sure who's blacklisted them. Edie is wondering if it was Joyce Atlas, the person that Edie was trying to steal from, if I'm understanding correctly. The other problem is Edie was thrown under the bus by someone they trusted, Angel, a person they grew up with, and they may have even loved at one point. There does seem to be some romantic tension between these two characters, but Angel gave all of these codes to Edie. They didn't work, and the police were waiting for them. So it does seem as though Angel ended up, giving Edie up to save her own skin, and now we have Angel offering Edie the opportunity to work with her for an even bigger score that would set everyone up for life, including Edie's, I think it's their cousin, their kind of nieces and nephews, or maybe their sister. I think that we met her sister, named Andy, and Andy's daughter, Andy's son. I believe Andy's daughter also has cancer, and so there are bills that need to be paid, and Andy's business is struggling. So Edie is wondering if there's some way that they can help their family out, and if it has to be illegal, it has to be illegal. After 8-9 years in prison, this is quite the big risk that Edie is taking, because they are being watched. They're being monitored in case they fall back into a life of crime, and yet the money is just too good. I'm wondering how much we're going to be distracted by the romance that may or may not take place between Angel and Edie. If I don't really want there to be a romance, I understand if we end up getting a backstory as to why Angel did what she did, but I don't think there's a way to climb back from that. Like, she dug herself into a really big hole, and now to have Edie forgive her or, have some type of physical relationship with her after that, I wouldn't be a fan of it. I really hope that that's not the case. But I am really eating up all of the heist jargon, the slow collection of different types of people to make a crew that could actually pull this heist off, because Joyce Atlas is a powerful person with a lot of connections, high security, and a lot of money that they really want to get their hands on. So it's been really fun. Also linguistically, actually. So before I end up kind of signing off and jumping back into the book, because I do want to make progress quickly, I'm not sure when leg 2 is going to drop. I'm hoping it doesn't drop tonight, because if so, I'm nowhere near finishing this book. But I'm really enjoying the cultural references and the linguistics that we are getting in this book, specifically because Edie and other characters are speaking Pidgin to each other, and it's just been lovely to hear in the audiobook, because I'm immersively reading this, which was not part of the plan either. I ended up trying this book last year, and I didn't really vibe with the audiobook narrator. That's been my excuse every time I mention this book, which has been quite a bit on my channel, because it's a book I bought, and that means I'm desperate to read it as soon as I can, and I failed to read it last year when I bought it. I kept giving the excuse that the audiobook narrator kind of turned me off. And now, as I've been listening, I'm really liking it. I have no qualms with the audiobook narrator. Overall, I am excited to continue. I look forward to meeting the other characters and why their certain skill set makes them perfect for this heist, how the heist is going to go, especially because we know that there are going to be problems, there are going to be issues, and is Angel going to be forced once again to save herself, sacrificing the others, or does she have any regrets, and will she do the right thing this time and choose not to give up her friends just to save her own ass? I have officially arrived at the Wester Drumlins, finishing Hamajang Luck, and I am proud of myself that at least for this first leg, I am keeping up with the readathon. But please know, if you're participating in Amazing Readathon and one of your biggest worries is falling behind, letting your team down, please get that out of your head right now. It's okay. Most of us will fall behind at some point. We might stay behind for the rest of the readathon. I am certainly someone who falls behind every single year, at least once, if not multiple times, and with multiple legs. That's when you just, lean into smaller books or allow yourself to enjoy the book you're reading. And then once you finish it, you can reassess and see what you can accomplish for the rest of the month. Plus, there's only 8 legs this year, which is quite nice. Adds a little bit of wriggle room with each leg as far as maybe being slightly longer between books. We'll see what happens. I don't know what Bree has in store. Only she and Katie, her right-hand henchman, knows what is going on this month. But when it comes to Hamajang Luck, I am a bit disappointed by how heavy the romantic subplot was in influencing the overall heist and influencing our main character Edie, mainly because I could not get behind them as a couple. Edie and Angel, the fact that Angel, we know the first thing that we learn and that we never forget is that Angel ends up turning Edie in, leaving them out to dry so that she gets a plea deal so that she can go to college and continue her life while Edie loses 8-9 years in prison. Edie and I are not the same. I would never have forgiven Angel. I don't care if she has excuses. I don't care if roles were reversed, blah, blah, blah. Well, they weren't. So you don't know what I would have done in that situation. And it just feels as though we never fully get things resolved. And yet the characters do continue to have some type of relationship. They get physical at one point. And I'm just like, no, absolutely not, because Edie deserves better. And even if they can find some type of common ground and Edie can forgive Angel, I don't think that they make a good couple. I don't like them together. And so I think that at the end of the day was my biggest struggle. I enjoyed the heist. I loved the various scenes where we have Joyce Atlas, the man that they're trying to steal from, coming in and out and not being aware that there's a handful of people in the room that are acting against him and trying to gain data, information, distract him. And then obviously that leads to the big heist where everything is on the line and we don't know who is going to survive, if they're going to succeed, and if they are, will there have to be some sacrifices? Will someone be left behind or have to take the brunt of the responsibility, being caught by authorities, etc.? There's just all these questions when you're dealing with a heist, knowing that these characters are essentially criminals, even if they're trying to steal from a very, very bad man. So overall, extremely entertaining. I loved all of the references to Hawaii and Hawaiian culture. The linguistic element added a really nice touch, and I just really appreciated Edie as a character, the hard decisions that they were forced to make. And I liked the side characters. I really enjoyed Sai. I liked Sarah Morris, the gymnast. I really liked her character, her background. And then Malia, aka Abake, the teenager who apparently is so good at tech that no one can catch her. There was a great cast of characters. It was just the romantic relationship that was really frustrating for me. But now to move on to another book, one that's going to go head to head with Hamajang Luck for the non-binary and trans main character square. I have a book in mind. We're gonna have to see if I enjoy it and if it's not gonna end up being an early DNF. I haven't heard many things about it, so I'm hoping that it's gonna be the cozy fantasy that I'm craving at the moment. But I do think I'm getting ahead of myself because I need to explain how I decided to read this book. So with the Amazing Readathon, we have all of these different challenges, all of these different extra prompts that we can do, specifically with sightseeing, but there's also non-reading prompts. In the last 24 hours, we were given a detour and a roadblock, and they were so fun. I really appreciated the roadblock because it made me look at my shelves and find a book that has just been collecting dust. I've been meaning to read it for years, and I ended up choosing the second book in the Neapolitan series by Elena Ferrante. Had a really great discussion with a few people on YouTube because I shared it in my community post, which was lovely. I don't use that feature very often on YouTube. I should, because it's a great place to converse and just talk about books on one platform. And then I ended up doing the detour. Our team, I'll say that we chose the path of following the clues, and we ended up getting this scavenger hunt. It was so fun. I ended up starting with a handful of books. I'll have the picture here showing the different titles I had to go through until I found the one that was the final solution. But basically, I ended up starting off with my current read, Hamajang Luck, and the various prompts led me to Cat Gamer Volume 1. I am not mad at that. I love that series to death. If you are looking for a manga series, if you're trying to get into manga and you like cats, and you like gaming, Cat Gamer is where it's at. But anyways, so with sightseeing, Bree has done a really cool thing where with every leg for sightseeing, you're given a new game board, and the prompts are inspired by the location, by the episode that has inspired the leg. And I ended up rolling my die. I got a 1, which means I did not have many options. And I ended up landing on a book that you can read quickly. And I found that the original title I chose, Celestial Monsters, while it's YA, while it probably would be quite quick, I am currently not in the mood for it, and I fear that that means I would not be reading it very quickly, which is fine. It just feels as though it wasn't the right book for the prompt for my mood. And with sightseeing, I think that it's important to mood read so that we can keep it fun and not feel as though, you know, with various prompts, we're kind of slowing ourselves down or forcing us to read something we don't want to. And obviously, Bree is really conscious of that. She's done a great job this year of creating prompts that are really flexible, that allow you to kind of choose whatever you want within reason. And I've been really impressed that she's able to do that, because it allows people to read without feeling too stressed, because this is meant to be fun. The Amazing Readathon is always so fun, one of the highlights of my year every single year. And yeah, Brie does a great job. But enough fangirling about Brie for the moment. Probably not the last time in this vlog. The book I decided to read, that I think I'll read quite quickly because it's a cozy fantasy, and that just feels very comforting and something I can kind of speed through and just enjoy the ride, is Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous by Autumn K. England. Apparently it's the first book in the Everyday Magic series. It says it's Stardew Valley meets Studio Ghibli in a charming cozy fantasy about healing, redemption, and the subtle magic of simple living. Oh, and I just noticed that it says welcome home, weary traveler. That weirdly feels kind of reminiscent of The Wandering Inn. So kind of interesting that we are getting a nod to the last fantasy I read for this vlog. Plus, it feels actually really fitting that I'm reading something so different, because with Hamajang Luck, this is the opposite of cozy. It's a heist, so it's high energy, it's dystopian, a bit cyberpunk, and now we have the Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous, which is cozy, sweet, feel good. I like that this vlog unintentionally has a theme of putting books against each other that are so opposite that it almost seems impossible to compare them, but I'm willing to have that challenge. So let me dive into Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous. We're just gonna have to see if I can finish it before the second leg is announced. Probably won't, but that's okay. I am on my lunch break. I went out to a local cafe and got a strawberry banana smoothie. It's really nice and it's quite thick. Some people aren't fans of thick smoothies, but I really enjoy that. So it's something I'm definitely gonna be ordering again. And I'm also wearing my Read with Pride shirt. I wear it year round, as you should, but it feels just a little bit nicer, a little bit more fun to celebrate, as it is Pride Month as well. And I've also already picked up some books that I'm taking home with me. We have Dead Weight by Hildur Nostadter. It's translated by Mary Robinette Cowell, of all people. And this author came out with The Nightgas last year, its translation at least. I really enjoyed it. It was a great horror novella, and I'm hoping that Dead Weight is the same. And actually it fits the prompt that we're currently on, because leg 2 has dropped. We are officially in the Scottish Highlands, and the prompt is to read a book that you don't own, or at least read a version that you don't own. And I'm on the fence. I could read this for the prompt because it's quite short, so this might be what I read on sprints tonight, which I also have because it's TBR-a-thon weekend. So I'm juggling a few events at the moment. But the other book that I was able to transfer to leg 2 because it fit the prompt nicely was Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous, which obviously I'm reading for this vlog. I'm about a third of the way through, which I think is what I said for my mid-book update of Hamajang Luck. So still trying to do a proper comparison of the two books. And this has been so sweet. It's definitely completely different tonally, but weirdly enough, I've just realized this, Oakland is not unlike our main character in Hamajang Luck, Edie, because they both have just gotten out of prison, done their time, because Oakland was a member of a cult. It ends up being quite a humorous introduction to that aspect, but as you get further in the book, Oakland really is racked with guilt, feeling as though they can't trust themselves, can't trust their magic anymore, because it at one point was linked to the Enchantress, I believe she's called, and she was a baddie of all baddies. All of her followers within the cult were forced to do horrific things through mind control, which means that Oakland is guilty but not guilty at the same time. It's this weird murky water, and Oakland just wants to start over. They have used their money that they ended up getting after reparations, because after the fact, people realized, oh, these people weren't really in control of what they were doing. Oakland ends up using that money to buy this homestead, a farm, and they realize there's other things involving in this farm. It may or may not be haunted. There is a guard dog named Daffodil that has already stolen my heart, and Oakland has met a few of the townsfolk, the people in the village, and they're really welcoming, they're really lovely, and that is making it harder for Oakland to know whether or not this is the right place for them to stay, because they don't know if they can really be themselves. How do you tell these people, as you're getting to know them, as they're getting to trust you, that you don't remember the last 6 years of your life because you were being mind controlled and you were a part of this cult that was burning down villages, destroying whole communities, and you don't even know who you were, what you were doing during that time. So it's really interesting because it's still super cozy. This is very, very cozy fantasy, and yet we are dealing with some hard-hitting topics, and there's a paladin within the village who works at the local library, and I love that. I didn't know that that was going to be something that I would encounter during this reading, and I'm really excited about it. And Oakland has feelings for the paladin, and it seems like Lenore, she may have feelings for them as well, but Oakland doesn't know if they can really get involved with a paladin because they were on the other side of the war, and she may not really like Oakland's past. She might not be able to accept Oakland's past. So it's difficult. It's very difficult for Oakland right now. Not to mention another paladin has rode into town informing the villagers of, I think it's called Mossley's Rest. It's a really lovely village name. I'll see if I can pay attention the next time it's mentioned. I also only have access on audio, so that is its own, struggle when you're trying to remember characters' names and what's going on when you don't have it in front of you. At least for me, sometimes that's the case. But this other paladin has rode into town saying, hey, there are cult members among you. Those who actually probably deserve a harder sentence, they should still be in prison, and all of these things. And so Oakland wonders if they should get the heck out of Dodge. They just bought this homestead, they have no more money to their name, but is this really a place they want to call home anyway? And so it's been very interesting. It is very, very sweet, but I think it's a soft coziness. It's not sickly sweet. We've all experienced the sickly sweet cozies, at least those who enjoy cozy fiction, whether it be cozy mystery, cozy fantasy, cozy sci-fi, etc. And then there's the cozy that is softer. It's a bit more quiet, a bit more contemplative, I would say as well, philosophical, and Oakland's journey is leaning that way. So I don't know if I'm describing this appropriately, but I think that it's a softer cozy than others I've read in the past, and that usually works for me more than the super quirky, cutesy, silly cozies. That doesn't usually work. So yeah, I'm excited, I'm intrigued. The only criticism I might have so far is just that there's a lot of references to past relationships for everyone. So not necessarily for Oakland because they were busy, being mind controlled for 6 years. They don't really have that same, experience necessarily. They did have, relationships before then. But Rin, Jules, so Rin is the baker who bakes like magical bread and everything, and there's great descriptions of that. Jules, if I'm remembering their name correctly, they're the bard who will sing a song and just entertain everyone. They have both referenced past relationships that have kind of either done them dirty or led them to make decisions in their life, and the same thing happened to Lenore. So I'm like, wow, we're really heavy on the discussions of romantic relationships. And I do think that this is a cozy fantasy romance between Oakland and the paladin anyway. But it's interesting that everyone is referencing how a romantic partner has either broken their heart or led them to this quiet village town. It's interesting how that works. I don't know. I feel like that might be a little bit forced. But other than that, I'm having a great time, and I'm excited to finish this book. And like I said, I don't know if I confirmed that or not. I am using this for the second leg of the Amazing Readathon. So hopefully I can finish it soon, and then I can maybe get a little bit of sightseeing done. We'll see what happens. Sadly, the weekend is almost over. It is Sunday afternoon, but this morning I did manage to finish Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous. So I will be providing my final thoughts on that book, but I want to be honest and let you know that it didn't end up being my book for leg 2 for the Scottish Highlands. Instead, on Friday, I went ahead and binged Dead Weight. This was so good, and it actually is probably better described as a thriller than it is a horror. I can't recommend it enough, especially for those who are hesitant about the thriller genre like I am. It really takes a lot for me to try a thriller, let alone finish it and enjoy it, but this one was so well done. I'm giving it 4.5 stars, and I just hope that more and more people pick up Hildur Nutsdottir because she does a great job of providing social commentary about interpersonal relationships between women. In this book, we focus on a friendship, and in the other book that is horror, The Night Guest, focuses on a woman after her sister has passed, and she's wondering if her sister is haunting her or not. And both books discuss quite heavily how men affect women, affect their relationships, and can be extremely harmful, extremely selfish to the woman's detriment. And why are these women keeping these men in their lives? It's so, so good. Can't recommend it enough, but I will put it to the side. So when it comes to Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous, that means I ended up submitting it for a sightseeing prompt. I rolled the die for the game board that was given to us this round, and I believe I ended up landing on third person POV. Yeah, that sounds about right. And that was perfect because Field Guide is written in third person. What's so funny is during TBR-a-thon sprints this weekend, I was mentioning that this is a book in the wings, that I'm reading Field Guide, but probably not finishing it during sprints because I've got other books I need to prioritize. And someone within the comments said, oh, I'm reading that right now, or they just finished it / DNF'd it because they were having issues basically with it feeling too much like a farming simulator game. And that is fair. That is fair enough. I totally understand. I suppose it makes sense because in the description, it is Studio Ghibli meets Stardew Valley. And so that's where the farming comes in. I actually really enjoyed those moments. I appreciated how much we were focusing on tending the farm, being aware of hazards, bugs, and other creatures, the weather and how that can impact farming, and how the entire village livelihood is dependent on crops doing well, not only to feed themselves, but to do well at market. And I really liked that area of the story. And I appreciated Oakland just trying to find a found family, that they were needing to convince themselves that they deserve it, that the atrocities they were forced to commit and partake in don't have to necessarily sit on their shoulders as heavily as it does. And so that was a really lovely story arc. The romance, this is a romance series. I have to keep saying that and reminding myself, especially because there are books to come. And I think one of my criticisms was that we were getting too many references to other people's romantic pasts. But I understand why Autumn England would do that, because they're setting us up for future books with other couples. I am the wrong audience for this, that I picked this up thinking it was going to be more cozy fantasy, when fantasy romance as a genre blend, also known as romantasy, that is a thing, and that is 100% the way it's marketed, and it should be. I just assumed that the romance element would be more of a subplot than a main plot line. That's on me. It's not on the author, it's not on the genre blend itself. What's so funny is that the romance in both books, Hamajang Luck, because that's what I'm comparing this to, and Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous, were the weakest elements for me, or at least the least enjoyable elements for me in different ways. When it came to Hamajang Luck, I just thought the couple did not work well together, and so I was frustrated when Edie was pining over Angel. But when it came to Field Guide, I understood why these characters were in love with each other, curious about each other, possibly wanting to pursue a romantic relationship. I just found it distracting and not as interesting compared to everything else Oakland has to deal with. I also am pretty sure I called Lior Lenore. Her name is Lior, by the way. Not that it really matters that much, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows I do know Lior's name. So not only do both of these books start off with our main characters having a criminal past in some way, but they also have a heavy romance that didn't work for me in both scenarios, but for very different reasons, as I said. Very, very different reasons. What's really hard is that I felt as though, as I was reading Field Guide for the Formerly Villainous, that it was going to be the runaway hit, that I was probably going to be giving this 4 stars or higher, and I just was going to fall in love with the coziness of it, which I did. But because there was so much romance that I did not care about, and I kind of checked out while I was reading, I'm wondering if my enjoyment of it actually was less than Hamajang Luck. And if I look at my star ratings, technically, Hamajang Luck did win. I ended up giving the dystopian sci-fi 3.75 stars, and then Field Guide to the Formerly Villainous 3.5 stars. But I was debating between a 3.0 and a 3.5 as the range. So very clearly, Hamajang Luck is one that I'm going to be thinking about more. that I'll probably be wanting to try the author Future Works by Makana Yamamoto more readily than Autumn England. I don't see myself continuing this series, even though I probably would recommend it to those who enjoyed The Spell Shop. That is a good comparison, and one that I also didn't really vibe with that much. I gave Spell Shop 3 stars, and I did like Field Guide more than Spell Shop, so it feels fair giving it a 3.5. But that means that science fiction ended up winning the non-binary trans square, and I'm floored because this is the second episode where we've found ourselves at a draw. 2 wins for sci-fi, 2 wins for fantasy. I don't know if either of these genres is going to find itself with a hefty lead at any point. We're just gonna have to see what happens. If you made it to the end and you are partaking in the Amazing Readathon, Bree gave me a little inside information that you may want to know. She ended up giving me this information yesterday morning on Saturday. So obviously it's not gonna be accurate right now as you're watching this, but maybe you can get a gist of where we're at in the game. But Team Allons-y has submitted nearly 1,000 books already. Congratulations, team, that is amazing. What's more important is that I hope most of these books were enjoyable, because that's the point of the readathon. That's why Bree puts it on, so we can have fun enjoying books, recommending books. So hopefully that large number of submissions were 4 stars or higher. If not, I'm so sorry. There's more of the month to go, so hopefully we can slide in some 4 and 5 stars for you. Let me know down below if the results of this second episode surprised you. Were you expecting a different ending, different winners between these 4 titles? And also, if you were a part of Escape the Readathon and or Amazing Readathon, rep your team in the comments. I'd love to see the emojis and just the praise for both Lexi and Bree, because both of them have done such great jobs at their separate readathons. And if you're not feeling chatty, feel free to drop a dog emoji in honor of Daffodil from Field Guide to the Formerly Villainous, because that really was the MVP companion character. Whenever Daffodil came on screen, I was so happy that she got all the scritches that she deserved. Thank you all so much. Be sure to subscribe if you are interested in following me along, continuing this series of Battle of the Bingo cards for our fantasy. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye!